always looking for edges.
Sure.
Looking for their next best performance to do something they've never done before, which is, I've come to appreciate that, John, is that the more I pursued this, I mean, looking at, and it's not, I mean, we can find these analogies, we can find the examples in athletes because these are very specific events for very short periods of time, relatively speaking.
Mm-hmm.
But you can broaden it out over lifetimes. I mean, people who really have set out to do things that have never been done before.
Right.
Yeah, it is. Jeez. You know, that's
new definitions of what's possible.
yeah. And everybody has all kinds of those opportunities in their life where it's not because nobody else has done this thing, it's because I have not done this thing before.
Right.
Which is just as meaningful.
Sure.
You know, if not more so. It's like,
go down that rabbit hole, go down that lane that you're not comfortable going down.
yeah.
And then
Yeah, it's like Goggins says, do something every day that you absolutely
right.
hate. Do what you hate.
Because when it, then, it's like when if you jump off that cliff or you're at that amusement park and you're going on, there's that scary roller coaster and of course you're scared shitless, before the race or before the ride, and then, you go on it and then the ride stops and then you're like, I didn't die.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
That was awesome.
Let's do that again. Like my son, the first time I took him sledding up north in upstate New York, and on one of those little saucers going down, one of these big hills we have covered with snow in December, and he's coming down that sled, and he's probably 3 years old, and look of terror. I mean, just
Sure.
Absolute, just pale as the snow next to him. Just gets to the bottom. What's the first word out of his mouth? Again.
That's awesome.
And so.
That's
And
great.
it's the same kind of thing, whether it's getting up and delivering that speech. I mean, a lot of us aren't comfortable, with public speaking, and you get up and you give that speech, and and afterwards, you realize that, yeah, I nailed it, I killed it, and that's level of growth. You stretch that rubber band for yourself further to a point where it's not going to go back, and so, yeah, constantly putting yourself in those situations where you challenge yourself and. Setting those goals that are going to be moderately challenging. I mean, we can't expect to set a super high goal and do it maybe tomorrow. Like, for example, the 4-minute mile, can't think, okay, well, I'm going to go out and do that this afternoon or tomorrow. But, we have our goal from a 6-minute mile now. Okay, well, I'm going to run a 5:50.
Yeah. Chart
this
course.
week, and then
chart course.
And if and it's the people that are successful, just from a goal setting standpoint, and that's what I always, preach to folks is, to write down your goals, but have a timeline. I mean, they talk about SMART goals, specific, measurable, and, and then the last one, SMART is the T is timely. And so to have those time benchmarks that you're going to do it. And then, the 4-minute mile thing, who's to say they can't if you set the right time increments.
Yeah.
So the world record is, I think didn't you tell me that someone had since broken that 4:28 record?
Yes, in the last 6-7 weeks ago, it's 4:19. Guy's 53 years old.
Wow. So take 9 seconds off at that.
Yeah. And that my original I'd set out to in terms of my own time is not just at 4.5 minutes, 4:20, because the record was 4:29 and change and 4:28 change, and it's like, well, I'm going to reset it at 4:20 because I'm going to throw down if somebody wants to beat that record that I can't work at. So he threw down.
So when is your next race? When will be your next formal attempt to break that record?
Yeah, my anticipation is in October with the Huntsman Senior Games down in Southern Utah.
Okay.
So cross fingers that no injuries, and
And your personal best so far, was it
4:32.3.
4:32.3. That's cruising.
It is cruising.
Wow. I'm just thinking about what goes into that. Just I'm thinking about what that speed is in miles per hour, and just just to do that for 100 or 200 meters for a lot of people, but to do it for 1,600. I mean, that's a phenomenal feat, and in the mile, that's so unique because it's a very unique blend of speed and endurance.
Yeah.
it's not a sprint, but it's not it's not a long 5, 10 or a 10-mile thing or a marathon. I mean, you're kind of in the middle, so you're really having to balance both.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely, there has to be a lot of strategy involved in there in terms of conserving your energy, but also leaving it all out on the track.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So I'm going to shift gears on you a little bit. So talk a little about how you strike the balance in your life between, raising 5 children and being very active in your church, having a busy career as an attorney, training to perform as a runner at this elite level as a miler, and now recently launching the amazing endeavor with Elements Meals. How do you balance all this? Because a lot of people can, say they're, a master of all trades or a jack of all trades and master of none, but it seems like you've done very well with all of these. As a family man and with your church and everything else, I mean, you're not just dabbling in these things, you're doing all these things and doing them well.
Yeah, I mean, arguably, yes, but there's every sword has 2 edges. Every sword cuts 2 ways, and every coin has 2 sides. Every success is a function of failure.
This is true.
And that's just how it is. And so I could say I have 5 fabulous children. They're remarkable individuals. And they have a fabulous mother. And after 28 years of marriage, their mother and myself, we divorced. And which was, I can't verbalize what that experience was, because it was about a 6 or 8 year experience of trying from the time the process was initiated to the time it was finalized. It was really a search to try to search in earnest to make it work.
Right.
But it didn't. Ultimately it didn't. And it presented very significant challenges to me, psychologically, spiritually, physically. I mean, the whole shoot match. And I think it turned out as good as it possibly could have, in terms of, if it's possible to have a good experience during a divorce. I mean, because we didn't battle over typical things with money, kids, acid, all that stuff. Right. It was very amicable. She's a fabulous lady. She's a fabulous mother.
Sure.
I married up when I married her. So
it's a traumatic thing, especially after 28 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been down that road, but for me it was 10 or 11 years, but 28 years. I mean, that's
that's being with her, longer than I've been with myself.
Right. When it's in that case, when it's such a large chunk of your life, and then to be, starting over with a new life and a new lifestyle, after that continuity.
So you get to choose, right? You get to choose whether this will destroy you or whether you'll let it improve you.
Right.
Whether you let it take you down, or whether you can choose to be a student,
right,
and stay open and curious and learn from it. And I think that's, I don't think there's a single point in time when you make a single decision like that. Those are decisions you have to make sometimes 100 times a day.
Sure.
Or 1,000 times a day. Sometimes some days are a bit better than others.
It sounds like you were able to reframe that as a learning experience.
Well, I'm here.
And things.
Here
sure.
I am.
And
here I am.
It's like the one song, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end.
Yeah.
And so it was a new beginning, a new opportunity.
Yeah.
And
but to try to frame it that way was an education. Because we're all of us are presented with situations in our lives that we don't merit, that we don't warrant, that we don't cause.
Right. We didn't ask for it.
But there are also those that we do. We do things that, we take action. We don't want to suffer the consequence of the action.
Sure.
It's like, well, that's doing something stupid. You're doing something and you don't want and you're not measuring the consequence of what you're doing, but you're going to do it anyway. Okay. Tell me how it worked out for you. But anyway, so whatever success I've had, I mean, I can certainly point to say, well, yeah, but look over there and what preceded it, or even what occurred prior to that. I mean, when I had points in time, I've been a very successful husband. I've been a successful dad. There's a point in time when that failed, and so you move from that, try to learn from that.
Sure.
And that has happened, still happening, and as a dad, yeah, I see my kids grow up this last year. I've got my first grandson, and that's awesome.
Congratulations.
That's awesome. Two of my oldest boys have been married in the last few years, and that's been awesome. They've got wonderful girls they persuaded to marry them, and they're doing great things. I mean, they're just making really good choices, and I can see their lives. Just watching my kids develop into great people. I've got a daughter who's 21. Is just a fascinating individual as well, doing extremely well. And two other boys that are, again, just really, and they're people I really like. I love to spend time with people.
I can tell. I mean, obviously we don't know each other very well, but I can see it in your social media posts. I mean, I know social media is only a small cross section of what you see, but I mean, you can just tell in the enthusiasm and the words that you use. It's just you can see how rewarding it is for you, and just how much you love spending time with them, and just how rewarding it is for you to see them thriving the way they are.
Yeah, and it's one of the benefits of these. We talked earlier about laws of the harvest. It's one of the benefits of the laws is if you do the work, then you reap the reward.
Yes.
That's an actual law, and you can't defy it.
Right.
And so if you do put in the time as dad, then you're going to reap the reward.
Sure.
For that labor. And
Absolutely.
it may not be on the time frame that you thought it would be.
Right.
Or whatever. But you're going to be able to experience that, or as a husband, or as a friend, or as an athlete.
Yeah.
But it's great to know that there are laws that are irrevocably decreed. That if you will take these actions according to these laws, then these benefits or these fruits will come.
It'll come back around.
It'll come.
Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, not next year, but
no, I mean, if
you will see it.
If you're involved in agriculture, it is a practice of patience.
Yes.
Because you can plant the seeds, but they will not be cajoled.
Right.
They're going to grow according to their time frame, according to the weather, the dirt, the moisture, the sun. I mean, they're going to react to that.
Yep.
And their own strength, and regardless of what you want or your will, whatever. No, they're going to grow at their pace. And so it's a practice of patience. And,
yes.
Just being willing to be patient.
Incredible stuff. Great nuggets here. So I'm going to shift gears on you.
And by the way, I'm a recovering lawyer, and I don't practice anymore. When I started Elements, I just I stopped practicing law. So.
Recovering lawyer.
That's right.
So, Elements. Let's talk about that. Now, I'll never forget how excited I became when I learned, when my girlfriend Becky told me about this endeavor with Elements and the product, and it's genius. It's revolutionary. It's well established. You know by now through social media that myself, my family are huge fans of these meals, and I know for a fact that there's going to be countless more fans in the making here. They say necessity is the mother of invention. Tell us the story about how this started. Talk to us about the pain points that you had, those white hot pain points, and you had with your nutrition that triggered the development of this product. So, I guess start us from the beginning.
Yeah, it was a natural outcome of prior experience. So, growing up on a small farm and appreciating the food that you get to eat when you pick it. Being able to eat the animals that you butcher.
Right.
When you shortly after you butcher them. I mean, it's picking an apple from a tree and eating it when it's ripe.
Literally farm to table.
Yeah. Just right off the tree to your mouth, and so if you take a golden delicious apple, late September, October, that's just, if you pick it then
Nothing
and
better.
eat it then it's, everything else, every other Golden Delicious that is harvested early is going to be a disappointment to you.
Exactly. I grew up in apple country in upstate New York, and
Okay,
when,
there you
when
go.
the fall comes
There you go.
and those apples come off, there's nothing else like it. And
So
Yeah.
our food supply system, our food supply chain is built not around that nutritional truth. It's built to circumvent it, try to hack it. Hacks are exactly what they sound like. They're not real. They're an attempt at truth,
right.
which means they're not.
Tell us the truth about what's going on, with when we go to our supermarkets and, we're making our efforts to eat at the outer aisles of the grocery store and to eat fresh or to eat, all these whole foods. But tell us a little more about the truth about what that food's been through by the time it's gotten to your supermarket.
Yeah, so this blends into this question, well, where did the elements come from? And really, it came from a crystallized thought of what I want is farm food. I just want farm food in a bag that I can eat anytime I want, anywhere I am. And that desire, that crystallized idea of here's exactly what I want, came from years of not having what I looked for.
Right.
I practiced for law for decades. I traveled nationally and internationally heavily, and I always controlled what I ate, and that took a lot of work. And so I would eat when I needed to, based on how I was training, because I was very fastidious about my training and my nutrition for my entire life.
Sure.
So whether I was in a deposition or in a boardroom or in a courtroom, I was eating what I was going to eat. I've had some really weird looks.
What was the most, maybe not outlandish, to us, but what were some of the things that maybe appeared the most outlandish that people would see you bring into the courtroom?
I was peeling hard-boiled eggs in the courtroom.
Okay.
Not peeling them before I went in, but just peeling hard-boiled eggs.
Objection, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Peeling my egg.
But I remember there was a product I was buying out of Santa Barbara. This fellow who was making what he called the perfect meal out of about 40 different plants, mostly green, and it was a powder. And I introduced it to my siblings. I called it Farm, because you could open. He would make it. He'd put it in these 1-gallon tins.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd open that tin, and it smelled like the farm. It would smell like a hayfield, with some barley in it, and different grains. But you'd open that, and it just reminded me of the farm.
Our sense of smell is one of those things that,
it just brought all those memories back. So I called it farm. So what are you eating? I'm eating farm. So anyway, you'd throw an apple in there, blend it up, and it would make this really kind of an ugly color, this ugly green color, kind of grayish green. And so it was a great food source. It served me really well. But I remember getting some really weird looks as I would shake that stuff up in the middle of some negotiation at a boardroom. And I had some guys look at me like, "What's that?" And I had even put together. I don't think I've ever told anybody this. I had packed around because I had a very specific shaker bottle before shaker bottles came out. I mean, a shaker bottle, and how I'd make this. Anyway, I had purchased a leather traveling kit, like a dock kit, like a shave kit.
Sure.
A really nice shave kit, and that's what I used to pack it in. But it was still a shave kit.
Oh gosh.
And so, I just pulled that out of my bag and I'd bust that open and start mixing, because I had the food in there, the bottle in there, and some other, supplement caps and stuff in there, and I would just get the looks like.
That's a funny looking lunchbox you
like,
got there.
The conversation would stop, and I finally thought, I'd get comments like, well, what's with the shaving kit? Well, because it works.
Sure.
It works.
It's functional.
So.
Wow.
Funny stuff. But, so you decide.
But you did what you had to do to be
Yeah.
successful. And we were talking about this earlier, how much, nutrition is the part that is so overlooked by a lot of athletes. They think, okay, well, I can eat what I want. I'll just do this much more exercise. I'll do more reps. I'll do this. But it doesn't work that way.
Well, you can, your body will compensate for that when you're young. The older you get, the less your body is willing to do that,
right,
or even able to do that.
Right.
So, it's just,
you can't eat Cheetos and have a six-pack once you get over 35, 40, 50.
A really great friend of mine told me he was probably one of the most, he had come from abuse of every kind of substance. He grew up in Compton, and just a very challenging upbringing, and every challenging thing that he went through, every substance abuse situation you can think of, he went through, and made a decision to change his life completely, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and otherwise. And so I asked him. There was a period of time for 2 or 3 years where we would get together once a week and talk about what did you learn this week, and we'd spend 2 hours on that question. What did you learn this week? And so we would share with each other what we learned in the previous week. And during one of these conversations, I asked him, "What is it that drives your commitment to nutrition?" And he says, I wrote this down. I committed it to memory. This is how we put it. I eat for others, not to satisfy my own tongue.
Wow.
I said, well, that hit me like a ton of bricks. I said,
eat for others.
Rephrase that. He says, I eat to serve others, not to satisfy my own tongue. And I thought, I wrote that down. That's his name is Garrett. And I was fascinated by that because it was a statement of a principle.
That's commitment right there.
It's a statement of a principle.
Right.
That the purpose of my life is to serve other people.
Right.
Not to indulge myself.
Right.
And to have that applied to nutrition, not just how I spend my time or what role I'm fulfilling, but no. So I asked him to explain that to me. He says, well, I could make a choice to eat a nice big hamburger and fries, etc. at lunch. But I make that decision because it'll give me maybe 5 to 15 minutes of enjoyment. Because it'll taste great, it'll feel good in my mouth, feel good on my tongue. But he says, after that 5 to 15 minutes, he said, my decision to do that will compromise my role as a husband and a father 4 hours from now.
When you're falling asleep on the couch.
When I get home from work and my wife needs my help and my son meets me at the door, what am I bringing to the table there?
Wow.
So what am I doing? I'm eating to satisfy my selfish desires. But
right.
Why would I do that? The consequence of doing that is not to be able to meet my commitments as a husband and father.
Right.
Later that day. Because I know it's going to happen. Of course it's going to happen. It's a physiological thing. It's going to happen. If I choose to eat this, that's going to happen. I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get home. The whites of my eyes are going to be yellow. I'm going to feel lethargic. I'm going to feel lazy. I'm going to want to sit down. I'm going to want to rest. Rather than being keyed up and prepared and energetic, when I hit that door, then, man, I am there for them. And so that was
Sure.
I said, I have never heard anybody put provide to me a principled basis of nutrition and eating patterns better than Garrett did that day.
I've never heard it put into those words or anything close to that, but it makes so much sense because we're such a quick fix society, and everybody's all about that immediate gratification. And in this 75 Hard Challenge, I've started to kind of in refraining from a lot of those immediate gratification things like a greasy pizza or ice cream and all those things that I would have reached for before because they taste great, but I feel lousy hours later because of either the gluten or the dairy or whatever else it was, and be tired, and you're not functioning at your best. You're not at your best for yourself, and in turn you're not at your best to provide and take care of others and give people the best version of yourself. And
Yeah.
so if you can delay that gratification, your rewards are going to be a lot better if you're giving up that cheeseburger or that pizza. When you're playing with your son, you're able to keep up with him. You're able to run around. You're able to help your wife, and then she in turn appreciates it. And lo and behold, that decision is now affecting your relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got our 4 years of life. We've got our relationships. We've got our mindset. We've got our physical power and our production, which is the way we earn and we make money in our business. And they're 4 legs of a table.
Yeah.
And if we're not taking care of one leg of that table, guess what happens? The table's going to crash over. All the other legs, all the other pillars are going to be affected there. And that's a great example of how they tie together.
Yeah, the power I found in Garrett's statement, Garrett Staples, just to attribute to you, Garrett, that's a tribute to you. He said that, once he stated that I could identify, I said, that's a principle I can choose to live by. Principles are powerful. They have power that beliefs don't have. Because people can believe in principles. So principles are exceptionally powerful truths, or they can also be false or false principles. And so here's a true principle, here's a seed that will grow good fruit.
Right.
And if you practice this, then the harvest will be exceptional and the fruit will be delicious. If my mental perspective on why I eat is so that I can serve other people and not to satisfy my own time.
This is so huge. I can't
told
even
Garrett, I said,
get over.
Garrett that I can believe, I can choose to commit to that. As a human being, I can commit to a principle. That's the power of a principle. I can commit to them, and I can keep a commitment to a principle more than I can commit to a 30-day challenge.
Right.
Because a principle can serve me my entire life.
Gosh.
And so it's a completely different approach. It's a completely different view of how I see what I eat. How's this going to? Okay, it may make my body stronger, this, that, and the other. But if I reframe that as well, if I sharpen the frame of that, not only do I feel better, but I will be able to serve. And that's a powerful motivation because it springs from love,
right,
and care, and kindness, and thoughtfulness, all these things that when we're seeking to serve ourselves, those are not what we're thinking about.
Huge nugget of wisdom right there. Huge. Because, my main goal of this podcast is to help people to overcome the mental barriers that prevent them from getting fit, from taking proper measures with their diets or with their nutrition, to their exercise, and just overall doing the things they have to do to take care of themselves. And so to reformulate the self-talk and to put it in that kind of language, that's what can hit home more than that.
Well, it makes the decision easier, right? Then you
Yes.
look at the ice cream or the pizza, and it's not tempting.
Right.
Because you understand that, the so-called satisfaction I would get from that is not satisfaction to me anymore.
It's short-lived.
So you look at those things, and they don't present the same challenge or temptation at all.
Right.
You look at them and recognize them for what they are.
Right.
Say, okay, if I want to pay, I know exactly what I'm doing. If I choose to pay that price because I want to eat with these people or enjoy a meal with these people, and maybe I do want to have a 15-minute, enjoyment on my tongue. Well, great. That's great. I just know what's going to happen. And I try not to let that get in the way.
Right.
Try to push through that.
Sure.
So I'm not looking to be antisocial or those other things, but to be able to refrain. Talking about, for me, it's the power of that commitment to that principle.
Yes.
Makes, those are great lenses through which I can look at
yes.
the nutrition rule and say, I choose this, not that. And, why would I not choose those things over there? Well, because I'm committed to other people more than I'm committed to myself, or at least to the degree I'm committed to myself.
Excellent.
So, but I wanted the other thing is with respect to elements, I got to a point where I had this white hot pain because I had a white hot goal, and in terms of improving my running time, for the mile, and it was in the course of increasing, watching the increasing intensity of training based on the goal I'm looking for, and understanding that is an older, I'm over 50, so the value that nutrition provides and that is increased because my body is not as forgiving as it was when I was younger. Younger, you don't have the wear and tear on your body. When you're 50, you have some life wear and tear on it, so it's not going to be as forgiving when you're cutting corners. So let's not cut corners. So for me, it was how can I need food. I want to stop peeling so many hard-boiled eggs. I want to stop eating tuna out of a can.
Right.
And raw vegetables, those are great, and plenty of water. But it just, there's got to be another way. There's just got to be a better way to eat whole, fresh food. It's easier than this. Simpler than this, because the simpler it is, the easier it is, the more predictable it happens, the better, the more predictable the outcomes as a consequence of that behavior. So
sure.
I want the outcome.
Fewer barriers in the way, the more likely we are,
right.
We're going to be able to carry on and make something become a habit.
Right. So I knew growing up, my dad took us we hiked a lot. I knew what freeze-dried food was about. We hiked the Sawtooths and the Tetons and the Wind Rivers. So I knew what freeze-drying was about, and I'd done some, looked into it because the technology has improved over the last 10 years. The freeze-drying technology has become phenomenal. But it's actually freeze-dried food in the past, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, the price was, it wasn't an exorbitant price because it's a very expensive way to preserve nutrition. It happens to be the best way in the world.
Of course.
To preserve natural nutrition. But
talk a little more about how it preserves the nutrition as far as locking the nutrients.
So it was really, the elements came as a consequence of wanting fresh farm food and preserving the nutritional value of that farm food in a bag that I could eat anytime, anywhere. So that was the objective.
Top level nutrient density.
Top level nutrient density, which means harvest food when it's ready to be harvested, not before. Preserve the nutrition of the plant and of the animal as proximate to intervening in the life force as possible. So once I harvest a fruit or kill an animal, then it's flash freeze that food as quickly as possible, because once the life force is terminated, then the thing begins to die.
You're right.
The plant or the animal begins to decompose. That's it. That's the biology. Life is gone.
Right.
Now it begins to decompose and cannibalize itself.
Sure.
And so that means that vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals are being consumed by the plant and being dispersed.
So it's denatured.
Yeah, totally. So even within 3 to 7 days, fruits and vegetables, they'll lose 50 to 70% of their mineral, vitamin, and phytochemical content.
50 to 70%.
Yeah, within 7 days of harvest. And we're harvesting before they're nutritional zenith. We're harvesting early.
They're not even ripe yet.
So they're not even ripe. So they haven't even maxed out. Nutritionally, they're compromised. We harvest when they're compromised because they're immature. Well, that's stupid. But we do that because we think, well, they'll ripen up or whatever. They'll age during the transportation process. What we harvest early is because they're hard, and they won't get bruised as much, and they'll be pretty for people to buy them in the store, and we'll force them to mature over time in the back of a truck. Or in a crate somewhere.
They might be maturing in their texture, but meanwhile the nutrition density is just
dropping off
draining right out.
Just precipitously. So you go into I have to say, the perimeter at the store, even the produce section, it looks beautiful, but it's a graveyard. That's where the fruits and vegetables go to die.
what was really telling for me, Stan, was looking at the Elements website and in reading some of the stories behind it, and then some of the subsequent emails of just how far that food has traveled in many cases.
Yeah.
And if you think, okay, it was harvested, but it came from thousands of miles away. Maybe it came from Mexico, maybe it came from somewhere in Europe. I mean, depending what the product was.
Yeah.
And if you think about all that time that, like you said, it's spent on that truck or that ship or that plane or,
big carbon footprint.
That
huge carbon footprint. I did it. Yeah. Every item of food in the grocery store has what is called a food mile attributed to it. I mean, it's an actual number that the industry calculates. And so, and a food mile has a carbon cost. I mean, because you're packing it. It's being packed somewhere. Like a lot of the cucumbers we get are from Egypt.
Wow.
Egypt's a huge cucumber producer. We have no idea how they're growing them.
Right.
Because it's certainly not transparent to us.
Sure.
Right. Almost 100% of the food that we eat, we have no transparency to.
Right.
We don't know the dirt it's grown in, quality of the water that was provided, what herbicides, pesticides, et cetera, were used on it. We don't know the variety.
Or the meats, how they were fed, or what they were fed.
Yeah, so very little transparency, which, to me is growing up on a farm where you actually eat what you grow and what you eat what you kill. It's like, well, that's crazy.
It's kind of scary when you stop to think about it. It's like,
Well, one of the most intimate acts in which we as humans engage is eating.
Sure.
I mean, even in current societies now, in the Middle East, in the Near East, when you sit down, and in some tribes, even still in Central and South America, you sit down to eat. That's a sacrament. That's a whole. Eating together is a holy practice. It's a sacred practice.
Sure.
To share food one with another is a sacred practice, and that ingesting food, putting food, to give food to another person that he puts in, he or she puts in their mouth.
Right. And if that food is tainted, then
that's a sacred practice.
Right.
In older societies, and actually our society, the fact we've become so divorced from our food it has never happened in the history of the world.
Right.
Or maybe even the last 50 years.
Right.
It's the relationship that humans have with food has never been this separated.
Right.
This disconnected.
That's a huge point. There's the relationship with food. I mean,
we don't know where it comes from.
The folks that I see that have success, I mean, one of the first things they'll tell me is they have a whole new relationship with food. They just, they start taking these things into account. I mean, and it's kind of interesting. I mean, when you talk about where the food has come from, and a lot of people say, well, I won't go to that restaurant because I know what happens in the back. I know how they prepare it.
Right.
And they're the pizzas, they're dropping it on the floor and they're using a 5-second roll, picking it up and still using it. But we don't go there. But we'll go to the grocery store, and those same kinds of things could be happening.
You have no idea who's touched what,
or what's been done to it, and there's no quality control. But because it's at Publix or Kroger or whatever your grocery store is that that is selling it, we accept it as it's perfect and it's clean and.
And we do have a great food system. I mean, compared to the restaurant,
right?
I'm not saying that we have a system that works very well.
Sure,
because we're fed very well. I mean,
right.
we throw away more. We throw away enough food every year to feed 300 million people.
Right.
Here in the U.S.
Absolutely.
So it's a very strange place to be, where the abundance of, and I shouldn't say the abundance of food. We do have an abundance of food, but we have a more abundance of edible products. That aren't food. I mean, the crap that is generated by big food in the big food industry isn't food. It's edible products. Food is stuff that actually is grown from the earth, and animals that eat that stuff.
Right.
Right. In my house, in our home, our kids grew up. There were two categories of things edible, and one was food, and the other one was garbage. And that's what we called it.
Right.
And so, Sunday morning is one of those mornings where. The only morning where we say you could have some cool cereal. Yeah, but Dad, can we have some garbage? I mean, that was the question. It's a garbage day. We had garbage days. Of course, well, you can eat garbage today.
Okay.
Let's eat some garbage today. But there was a recognition of
Right.
let's call it what it is.
Sure.
Food is this stuff that the earth provides to us.
But you built that awareness early.
Yeah.
You know, and I think there's not enough of making kids aware of making the good choices early.
Well, they don't get the blessing, John, of being able to plant seeds and see plants grow and being
Right.
fascinated with that,
Right.
watching the fruit of these plants. I mean, it is a mystery.
Right.
It's a miraculous mystery to me. The relationship between the earth and seed, water, sun, and air, and inorganic minerals.
Right.
That the soil and the plant can work together to convert to water-soluble minerals accessible to the human body.
It's quite a phenomenon if you stop to think about it.
Show me human technology can do that.
Right.
I mean, this is what every plant can do. The plant and the soil, something happens between the plant, the root, and the soil.
Yep.
And the water and the sun, and our bodies utilize it. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. So what I wanted to do with Elvis was really capture, honor food, hold food in that place where it should be. It's a sacred thing. Is there any wonder that people don't respect the earth because they have no respect for where food comes from? If
Right.
they did, they would treat the earth a lot better.
Right.
They would regard it.
Exactly.
But if they have no connection between where food actually comes from and what it takes to grow it, how do we expect them to
Sure.
honor the source if they don't know if it's the source? I mean, it's a very common sense,
and
but it's absolutely
sure. And it starts with us as parents too. I mean, as parents, we're not modeling that and showing them how to respect the food and where it comes from,
Yeah,
and to have that kind of relationship. If
Put a small garden in the backyard.
if we're not modeling that kind of behavior, how are kids going to pick up on it?
Very hard, very difficult to
You
have.
know, they need to learn the habits somewhere, and if they're not getting them from us, where are they going to get it from?
So we wanted to capture that. I wanted to capture that nutrient density and be able to provide that to people, because I knew if we didn't capture it, then we couldn't deliver it. And so that's really where Elman's food, the Elman's Mills came from, is harvesting food when it's ripe, flash freezing that food within hours of harvest, and all of our animal proteins naturally raised, pasture raised, and flash freezing that flesh within hours of kill, so that the nutrition is there. Freeze drying food actually preserves even cell structure.
Okay.
Enzymes remain alive. It doesn't kill the food at all. It actually puts us in basically a stasis.
Sure.
And so the freeze drying technology is we actually freeze food to a 40 degrees below Fahrenheit.
Gotcha.
40 degrees below zero, which makes sure that all of the water, all the HO2 molecules in the food are, that's all crystallized. That's placed in a freeze drying machine, which creates a vacuum. And then air pressure is increased, decreased, and the water molecules change instantaneously from solid to gas. So it goes from ice to steam.
Right.
Just instantaneously without transferring to liquid, from solid to liquid to gas.
Oh my gosh.
So there's that change, because you set an ice cube out, and you sit there. If you want to melt it and become steam, you got to apply a heat, but it's gonna, most of it's going to become liquid first before it evaporates.
Sure.
Steam, right? Well, in the freeze drying, it's one reason it's called freeze drying is the transfer of that water from solid to gas is in a dry state.
Okay.
It never goes liquid. And so that kind of transfer of the water, so what's pulled out of the food is just the water.
Right.
So the nutritional contents,
Still there.
all there. Cell structure, there. Flavor, there. Texture, there. Taste, there. Even the Brix levels. So all that stuff is preserved. And it's put in a point of stasis. So now I don't need now as long as I shelter it from sun, moisture, and air, from light, moisture, and air, then it has a stable shelf life. And that nutrition is very stable over longer periods of time.
So basically a sealed bag and it's sheltered.
Right. So, you buy Elements Meals, you get it in this bag. It's a multifunction bag.
Yes, it is.
Because it's protecting the food from light, air, and moisture.
Yep.
And so, no refrigeration required, which
Yep.
makes it just preeminently convenient. Because you throw it in your bag, the back of the truck, or the suitcase, or the briefcase, whatever.
And the bag can become its own bowl.
Yeah, the bag.
Which I love that feature. There's no cleanup.
Yeah, that we're trying to respond to the issue of food waste. There's no waste.
Single guys out there, listen to this. There's no prep involved. There's no cleanup, and you're getting a great meal. I mean, gosh, what can be better than that?
What can be better than that? So yeah, you can do right out of the bag, as you obviously have, and but you can also plate it if you're at home. You just don't want to cook. I mean, you can plate these foods in wonderful ways.
Like I said before, freeze, dry, farm to table.
That's right. That's good. You came up with that phrase. I remember. Can I use that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, it's just I find it so exciting because it's going to be great for so many people in general. I mean, my daughter already loves it, and I think now's the time if we can start making this more accessible to children and get them trying this, I think kids will really take to it as well. Kids can prepare it themselves. They can heat up a cup of water themselves and pour it in. This morning in the airport, it was perfect for me because, I wanted something nice and clean to eat in the morning, and I knew I had a 4.5 hour flight coming from Tampa to Salt Lake City, and I wanted something that was going to sustain me. And that's the other thing is how well, because of that nutrient density, is how well it sustains you for a long period of time. I'll let you talk a little more about that because, the meal I had this morning, I think, was 310 calories.
So what did you have?
And it was the sweet potato hash with the sausage.
Yeah.
And 310 calories, but it served me.
Isn't that crazy?
That's the only meal I've had today, and it's 2:00 Mountain Time, which means it's 4:00 back on the East Coast, and I ate that meal about 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And that's the only meal I've had today. I had another bar, when I was on the flight, a little, an Epic bar, which is basically protein, but that's really the only meal I've had today.
But
with that nutrient density, it's amazing just how well it keeps you satisfied and fills your body's needs without all these empty calories.
Yeah.
Like every calorie is it. Just the efficiency there. It's so well accounted for.
Yeah.
You've hit the ball out of the park with this because you're solving every person's pain point. You want to get what you need. You want to feel good. You don't want to be under. A lot of people are cutting calories, but they're cutting what they need, and they're not. They're bonking. You got athletes that are bonking. You got people that are passing out. Because they're trying to. These women that are trying to eat 1,000 calories in a day. And do an hour of cardio daily, and they're just having a hard time even walking by the end of the day, keeping their eyes open. They're functioning because they're just not getting what they need. Your brain, just to function, we need those micronutrients.
Yeah.
And
so it's been one of the fascinating things to see these meals utilized, and actually to eat them myself and experience what was. To experience and practice what was theory, because there's not a ton of science out there on caloric value / nutrient value and energy output. So much focus is put on calorie in, calorie out kind of calculations, which is not accurate.
Sure.
It's like gospel truths in nutrition and training circles, and it's false.
Right.
Different. Fat calories are processed different than protein calories that are processed different than carb calories.
Sure.
Those are facts, and that calorie in, calorie out equation defies the second law of thermodynamics. It doesn't take that into account.
Right.
And so, much less the nutritional pathways that proteins follow versus sugars and more complex carbs and fats.
Sure.
And so It's hopefully we can have some participation in that conversation, help people understand that you can eat 300 calories of Twinkies, or you can have a 300 calorie Elements meal. A calorie will produce a certain amount of heat. It'll heat a certain amount of water
Sure.
by 1 degree in a certain amount of time. But that's not the that's a very relative value. That's an anemic way of looking at food,
Right.
just based on a calorie.
It's very short-sighted.
Yeah. So it's been really wonderful to see how, with elite athletes to moms to executives, whoever's just the common man, whoever's eating our foods, to see them have this realization that 300 to 400 calories, our caloric content in calories tops out 400 calories. Our red lentil dal is 400 calories. Our coconut meat chicken is 400 calories. The other meals are between 270 and 320. But to eat a bag of our food, to eat one of our servings, and come away feeling, man, I'm not hungry anymore. I feel satisfied, but not full. I feel good.
You can really make those calories count.
Yeah.
The striking story, when the first time we spoke, I can't remember what type of athletes it was, but you were talking about how some athletes, they use them for a pre-race meal.
Spartan boys.
And instead of having their usual 800 to 1,000 calorie meal,
or even 1,500 calories,
or even 1,500 calories,
carbs.
each of them just had an Elements meal. And I think you told me not only did it sustain, that was sufficient for their pre-race meal, but didn't you tell me there was no intra-race nutrition that
Correct.
they used?
Yeah.
So they didn't eat anything, didn't consume anything at all during the race.
Right. So they ate this, one of these meals at 70 minutes before their 13-mile obstacle course race, Spartan race, and got it through the race. It's crazy. And their coach came back to me and said, "This is nuts. This is nuts. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. How can that be?"
Right.
So.
Yeah, and that just struck a chord for me, because as a triathlete and having done 3 Ironmans, and then you're already anxious as can be the night before a triathlon, especially an Ironman race, thinking about everything and anything and your equipment, and there's a lot of things that have to go right on that day, and one of the things that has to go the most right is your nutrition, and that includes the night before, and all I'm thinking about is, I'm traveling to these races, going to Louisville or going to Panama City Beach or going to Lake Placid, and you need to have,
better have that
kitchen facilities and to cook something for yourself. But if you're in a regular hotel room, you might have a microwave, and you have the bathroom sink in most conventional hotel rooms. So in that case, a lot of people are rolling the dice. With whatever they're going to get at the restaurant, like in what we said before, you don't know what's happening in that restaurant.
Yeah.
And
food quality transparency.
You're going out and you're getting your pasta from Olive Garden or Carrabba's or Cheesecake Factory or wherever it is that true story. Been there, done that with some of these type of restaurants, pre-race, and nothing happened, but you're rolling the dice.
Yeah.
And and at the same time, when you're already stressed the night before the race, do you really want to be going through the motions of preparing a meal?
Yeah, so I think one of the greatest benefits that Elements Meals brings to be conscientious eaters is really peace of mind.
Right.
I mean, it quiets that anxiety, that mental anxiety down, that I've got my nutrition handled, no problem.
Right. And and because it is such clean burning fuel, it's not going to react on you. It's not going. The next day you're not going to find yourself feeling sick.
Right.
You're not going to have the gut rot or whatever else that you can have from eating these other processed foods or foods that you get from takeout. And so, I know for triathletes, I mean, this, when triathletes give this a shot, they're going to absolutely love this, because it's going to fuel them, not just for the night before, but the next day they're going to feel the effects. Gosh, I mean, you needing this stuff dry on the bike, I think, would be phenomenal.
We have some of those guys that do that, just eat it dry.
Yeah. I haven't tried it. Yeah, I haven't been on the bike much lately, but I will try that. I'd rather eat my calories than drink them on the bike. So I think that'd be phenomenal. And I'd rather have that in my stomach than all the processed sugars and synthetic sweetened things that you get in a goo, or some of those gels, or some of the waffles and whatever else. I mean, this kind of thing is gonna it's going to treat your body a lot better.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
So very good. And and I know some folks that are bodybuilders that are very interested in this as well, because when they're doing their cuts with their calories and everything else, I mean, to only have 270 to 400 calories that they're taking in, and to be getting that much bang for their buck with all the nutrients that they need, a lot of these things that people are having to take extra pills just to reach those daily allowances.
Yeah.
It goes a long way. So, Stan, how can everyone find you? How can they find you on social media?
Yes.
What website can they go to access Elements Meals?
Real simple. Just first Elements Meals. It's getyourelements.com.
Getyourelements.com. And folks, I'll also have this in the show notes. And how can they find you on Instagram or Facebook too? How can they find more information?
Our social media with Elements is Elements Meals at Elements Meals. So our Instagram handle, Facebook, it's Elements Meals.
Oh, okay. And
website is Get Your Elements. Social media is Elements Meals. Me personally, it's Stan the Mile Man. So
right. And so hashtag Elements Meals.
Yes, hashtag Elements Meals.
So, and when you have when you have that moment, where you try it and you realize how much you love it, we definitely love to hear from you. So hashtag Elements Meals, because we want to hear about how well the product has treated you, and how well how it's contributed to your success, how it's eliminated your pain points, and how it's helped you in general with your quality of life.
Excellent. Yeah, I'd love to hear good feedback.
Absolutely. Stan, thank you so much for opening your office to me for this episode, and for taking the time to tell us about all your accomplishments, providing so many useful nuggets of wisdom. As promised, best podcast ever for this podcast. And once again, if something resonated with you, please go on and leave a 5-star review. Everyone, thank you for listening. Continue to be your own agent of change, and as always, be good to yourselves.